Now today the topic is seeking meaningful life through Eightfold Path. So seeking meaningful life through Eightfold Path. Eightfold Path is very popular in all the Buddhist traditionally. I think everybody practicing those Eightfold Path. Now here today, I try to explain the relative with this mundane life, how can live oneself meaningful, peaceful life through the Eightfold Path. So Eightfold Path, Eightfold Path, which means the first called right thoughts, then second, right intention, and then third, right mindfulness, then right concentration, then right effort, then right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So that's the Eightfold Path. Now, first, right thoughts. But before that, seeking meaningful life, through the Eightfold Path. What's meant by meaningful life? Many of us, when we think about a meaningful life, which means something, I should be something very rich person, or maybe they think I have to be very powerful person in this, or maybe I have lots of material, or maybe I have a beautiful wife, or beautiful husband, or beautiful children. Is that mean meaningful life? Or really high educate? Is that means meaningful life? What's the really meaningful life? So as long as if your understanding of meaningful life, which is something material things, like external, beautiful, this or that, then always trouble, always fear, living your life with fear, very stressful. So here, meaningful life, which means first, in order to know about the meaningful life, first you should know about your own heart. Why you go to school, why we are here, why we're doing this, why I go to the work, or why I share my life with him or her. Everything we're doing something. Our life is very busy, running, rush, moving everywhere. But when you sit and ask yourself, why are we doing this? At the same time, from external condition, like make our life very busy. So all those busy life, when you first really ask yourself, why are we doing this? So simple answer is, why are we doing that? Because we want happiness. We want really peace, happiness, harmony, joyfulness, and we don't want suffering. So we have a fear to have a suffering. So the fear is because we don't like suffering, because we don't want to experiencing those suffering, unpleasure. We don't want that. So because of not wanting these things, so as long as when we feel this kind of suffering, it creates us fear, it creates us worry too much. So through that reason, when we really ask yourself why I am doing this, everything I am doing, all my lifestyle, busy life, making money or whatever we're doing, the purpose is the simple purpose is to happiness, live with peace and happiness, without suffering, without unpleasure. That's our purpose, right? So it is very important oneself have to know your own heart. Oneself, you have to really understand why you're doing that, why I have to do this, why I'm doing. So if you're really understanding why I want this, why I want this, what I doing this, why I busy this, simple, I want to peace and happiness and I don't want suffering. So that's the simple heart which always within us is sort of this kind of desire, which we call innate natural desires, which means being a human, we always, that desire is always there. It's the human identity. Is this our nature? So this is our nature, our identity, which means being a human. Who am I? Who's the real I am? And I'm the person who really wants to be peace and happiness and don't want suffering. That's me. So simple, our identity, like our fundamental, our identity is just seeking peace and happiness and don't want suffering. So if my life is living with full of peace, full of happiness, oneself and others, that means my life become meaningful. If I live without suffering, without unpleasure, living with full of peace and joy and happiness, that means my life become meaningful, right? That's simple. So that meaningful life, why we want that? Because our nature, our identity is we just want to be peace and happiness. That's our nature, that's our identity. So being a human, of course we have to live with meaningful life because our nature is just wants to live like that. That's our identity. So this nature desire, it's natural desire, our identity, which means it's inseparable. Wherever we go, wherever we stay, whatever we're doing, that desires always there, always remain deep of our heart, wants to be peace and happiness and don't want suffering. So because of that, and that desire is it's not influenced by any other beings. When we're born, it's always there. Being a human is just as long as when the consciousness arises there, this feeling of seeking peace and happiness always there. So that desire, it's naturally there and always with us, is inseparable. And this kind of understanding by yourself is first very crucial, very important. Being a human, we have to know our identity. Who am I? So that if you're confused, if you're misunderstanding of your identity, then always making trouble. Always you're looking something which is your heart is never satisfied. Your deep of your heart, always there's something trouble. So first, really, I often using this message because I think this is first very important to really understanding first, basic human nature. What is the basic mind nature? What is the basic human identity? The ground. First we have to know the ground. And that ground, basic, nobody created. That's why you call it nature. It's not somebody create or somebody tell us we have to do all this. It's just being a human. It's just there. It's almost and always there. It's like we call the nature of fire is burn, right? The nature of fire is burn, creates heat. So if there's fire, it's always there's heat, always there. So like if a human being, that means always that desire, wish to peace and happiness and don't want suffering. It's always there. So that's the human, we should really understanding. This is very sacred, holy, important qualities we human being has, always wanting to be peace and happiness and don't want suffering. Through your own experiencing and through the logic, through reason, use all these things. Finally, as long as when you're really understanding your own identity, our fundamental, the ground, the basic ground, human nature, then second step. If that's the me, that means everything I'm doing, what kind of lifestyle I choose it, as a couple, as a single, or as a monk, or nun, or whatever lifestyle, businessman, or artist, or whatever, politic, whatever we choose, is the purpose is because of that peace and happiness. Because of that purpose, then each individual has different brain capacity, different talent, different influence, different environments. So that's why, some choose this way, that way, different lifestyle, but the purpose is completely same. So always we should know our goal, purpose. Then if you don't have any purpose, if your goal is completely something, what you call confused or misunderstanding, then what you're doing, even you don't know what I'm doing, for what reason, what is the goal, then you're just doing for temporarily. And then always there is a trouble. So if you know your goal is the happiness, ultimate peace and happiness, that's why I choose this life, to reach that happiness, to achieve peace and happiness. Because of that, I choose this lifestyle, that lifestyle, this movement. So any action you're doing, you should really think, I'm doing because of that. I'm doing because of that. You always make link between your purpose and your action by your intention. If you don't know that, then action for what? Don't know. Then problem is doing very hard work, working very hardly. Very hard work they're doing, their life is always suffering. Hard work, you make money, you make something, your material progressing, but the person who living with this material, always living with very painful life, very frustration life, very depression life, very unpleasure life, then what's the purpose? That human being become slave of money, right? Supposed to be money is serve us, right? Help us. But what we're doing today, we support our money, we slave, we servant, we serve to our money. That is going this way. So this way, because we don't understanding the purpose. So purpose is money. Then of course you have to serve to your money. Then always, if I got money, I will fight it, I will steal it, I will kill it, or I will do anything as long as I have money. Doesn't matter I'm suffering, I'm losing this or that, whatever I'm losing, as long as money, I do it. Then you got the money, eventually, then you know that your money is growing, same time your inner pain, inner suffering is growing. Then there's no way to how to handle that problem. Then simple way is too much mental problem, too much stress, too much depression, don't understanding what's my main goal, because they're understanding my goal means being a star, or being rich, or being some kind of material things. So now you have all these things, but your heart never satisfied. You're still missing so much in there. So to get rid of this problem, now you don't know how to fix that problem. So you know the problem in your heart is some kind of stress or worry or depression or fear or something there. So to get rid of those problems, what we can do is just drink and drunk, right? That's the one easy choice. People drinking, maybe young people drinking for just fun, but many people might be they're drinking because of too much stress, too much fear, too much worry. There's the heart, is too much pain there. So drink and drunk, and they feel a little bit joy, something. And that joy is just temporarily joy. It's not remain there. That kind of joys bring more problems. But unfortunately, their mind didn't see that way. Then drunk more, eventually, then drugs, then whatever, this alcoholism or drugs addiction, or then all this trouble, huge, big trouble. Then it's effect to your health, job, family, everything destroy. Then what? You got your money, you reach that level, finally your life is miserable life, difficult life, that's you got it. So why we turn into there is because they didn't make a link between your purpose and what you're doing. There's no connection. So that's why first always be, the purpose of life is that, happiness. So what's mean by happiness? Is the happiness which means party? Is that the happiness? Or go to the alcohol place and drink and drunk, is that the happiness? No, bar, right? It's called bar. I'm always forgetting that name. Yeah, go to the bar and drink and drunk, is that the real happiness? Oh, just happiness, just fun, go, it's here and there. Is that happiness? Really, what is the happiness? The major, human being, we thinking happiness, which means just some kind of material, these kind of things. When you have that, we think happiness. So, if that's the really happiness, is this really happiness or not? If the real happiness, if this is real happiness, that means when you're experiencing this kind of happiness, you should be more happier and happier and happier. But these material things, if you use more and more, they're creating more trouble, more problems, right? If you go too much to the bar, drink, eventually it will create trouble, right? It's not really remain you full of joy. It's change. It's all these things going to be transformed. It change into the suffering. So use the logic. If this is real happiness, then why is change to the suffering? If I use that, I should be more happier. But these things, if I use more, eventually they brings more trouble. Eventually they bring something change that. That means it's not real, like the color, where you paint it into anything, like a painting in this muck. If the red color you're painting there, if there's the muck, the nature of that muck is real red color or not? If the real red color is the true, then how much you use that red color? It have to be more better red. But if you use more clean that slowly disappear. Then its own colors comes out, right? Which is not that same thing. Same when these kind of material was the mundane pleasure, which is today we consider as a pleasure, which is those mundane things. If you go more these things, eventually its own natures when they comes out, horrible, miserable, unpleasure. Everything's transforming into the unpleasure things. That's very clear, right? If you party every day, you can see then trouble's there. Then party very long time, then after that there's a fighting, there's too much trouble. So then even you never experience any pleasures. It's every day, today party, tomorrow this. There's nothing, any pleasures there. So if you use this like if the outside when the very hot weather, then when we come in there, use this air condition, first pleasure, right? Then if you remain long, then getting cooler, then you have a suffering of cold. You want to go out. So if you remain longer, that pleasure turning turn into the unpleasure, suffering. So that means this is not real happiness. This is not real. This is not ultimate pleasure. It's not valid. It's not valid because when you use that, when the nature, their own nature, when it comes out, it's making unpleasure. So we really use to understanding, really that's the really not real pleasure. My purpose of life, everything I'm doing is to achieve peace and happiness. But unfortunately still, I don't know what is the happiness. As long as if you don't know happiness, or if you don't know real suffering, how can you achieve that happiness? How can you remain pleasures? There's no way. So today my understanding of pleasure is everything is mundane pleasure. It's like we call contaminated pleasure. So contaminated pleasure, which means as long as this pleasure, when you use more, it will turn. It will turn into unpleasure. It will turn into sufferings. Everything mundane today, what we talk, everything when you go more there, everything is turned into suffering. The Buddhists we call the suffering of changing. So suffering of changing, which means mundane pleasure. And all the mundane pleasures are the part of suffering of changing. Eventually, it will change into the suffering. So money, power, or high anything, when you reach that level, it's not going to remain that way. It will turn. It will turn into something. So before, if you don't have these things, you are suffering of not having these things. When you get these things, you have a suffering of having these things, right? All the material world is like that. Because of not having a job, because of not having a fancy car or what you call shelters or all those material, because of not having these things, we are stressed, we are worried, we have a fear, we depress. Now, you work very hardly, you got it. Not because of having a job, having a car, fancy car, you have stress, right? Because of having a job, we stress. Because of not having a job, stress. So everything, when you look today, when we thinking about, when we understanding of happiness, all those happiness, before not having those happiness, we suffer. But after to having this material, we're also going to be suffer, right? We always living like that. The young, you don't find girlfriend, boyfriend, we suffer because of not having boyfriend and girlfriend. Then you're looking here, there, eventually you found it. Because of having boyfriend, girlfriend, we suffer again now, right? Before not having them, we suffer. After you are having them, we're suffering. Same, not having wife, husband, children, people suffering. Because of wife, because of husband, because of children, they're suffering. It's stress. So it's this way or that way, or still we're suffering. So we use this, all those mundane things are really, it's not the really peace and happiness. That's the not real peace and happiness. So what is the real happiness? That I want it, purpose of my life here, purpose of I go to the work, purpose of doing all these things is happiness, but the real, what are the happiness? What is the happiness? Now here the happiness, which means the thing which when you got it, first makes you joy, pleasure. Second thing, if you use more and more, it will make you more and more happier. It's never turned into the unpleasure. It's never changed to something different. As long as if you use more, it gives you more and more happiness. That kind of happiness. For what kind of that happiness? Do we have this happiness? Where is it? What is that kind of happiness? It's simple. What do you call? Freedom of anger, right? Cessation of attachment, greedy. Cessation of anger and hatred. Cessation of jealousy, selfish. Cessation of negative thoughts, emotions. These are the real happiness. So if you achieve cessation of anger, if you live your life without anger, how much happiness? If you stay 10 days, 20 days, year by year, that happiness never change into suffering, makes you more and more and more happier. If you use more, that makes you more happiness, more joy. So what is the real ultimate peace and ultimate happiness, which means simple, ultimate peace and happiness, which means cessation of all the negative thoughts, emotions. That's the real peace. That's the real happiness. So peace, which means cessation of negative thoughts, emotions. So now my life, in purpose of my life is to achieve that happiness. So that happiness is, which means cessation of negative thoughts, emotions. So when you think, how the really cessation of anger, is that the real joy? How we really know this is the ultimate peace? If I achieve the cessation of anger and hatred, cessation of attachment, cessation of negative thoughts, emotion, do they really make happiness? How we know that? So in order to know these things, first we should think, who makes me really suffering? Who creates pain, depression, or fear, or worry? Today we all experiencing our life with this kind of very unpleasure, like fear, all those inner pain. Who really create that? What are the main causes of that? Many of us, we always thinking, of course I have to be stressed because I have this kind of job. Of course I have to be stressed because I have this kind of families. Of course I have to be feared because I lost this, that. We have a reason, but way we thinking, I'm stressed, I'm suffering because of this material. That's only that, kind of understanding is very small. It's not enough. It's our suffering. I'm stressed because of this or this family or that guy, or like for instance in the job, many people do have problem. And we go to the work, then people scream you, or the boss are shouting you, or this. That's why I'm stressed. That's why I have a fear. That's why I'm worried. We think that. But is that really your stress is because of that screaming? This guy, is that only the reason? When you really think, these are not really, these are the condition, but are not the real causes. These are not real main causes. Because if somebody scream me, shouting me, or use bad word, because of that reason, I am stressed or I have depression. If that depression is because of he used that word, is that the only causes? It's not. If that's the only causes, then whoever, the one guy, when they shouted to the 100 people, all the 100 people have to be same stress, same depression. But not, right? When you go to the work, each individual has the screaming, the guy is doing same thing, each individual has different suffering. Some are very painful, some are not that much, some are less. So it's very different. If only the external causes that what makes that, then everybody have to be same feeling. But it's not there. That's the reason, right? Its causes are not only there. So what are the causes? Why that words really creates me pain? Why not for this guy? Why I have too much stress? You really think, because I'm angry, I hate. As long as when I hear this voice, I'm too much angry. Because of that anger, it leads me fear. It leads me depressed, or it leaves me, stress, fear, all those inner pain because of that anger. The reason is, if I really free from anger. If I don't have any anger when he shouted, why I have to be stressed? There's no reason to be stressed. There's no reason to be fear. If I don't have any anger, that's just a word, right? It's just an air. It's going like air. It's not going to that way. So pain here, which means it's absorbing. So that word is there. When I take it, absorbing in my mind, who taking that? My anger. So my anger taking that word, then put it into deep of my heart and creates fear, worry. So if I stop my anger, that word is just air. It's not stuck there. That's very clear. So as long as if I don't have any anger, whatever they say, not change my emotion. It's not create my inner pain. So the suffering, when we talk about the suffering which means our own like a mental experiencing, right? As long as when your mind is experiencing something, unpleasure, suffering, anything, that means I am suffering. As long as when your mind is experiencing in joy, peace or happiness, that means I'm happy now. Therefore, how you determine yourself as a happy and suffering fully depend on your mind. As long as when your mind is fully peace, happy, today you say, oh, I'm very happy now. So everything's going right. You are happy, your environment, whatever your family, everybody's saying, oh, very happy. As long as when your mind is frustrated, when your mind is stressed or fear or depression, that means first, you are not happy. You are suffering. Same, it can spread to your family, whoever beside you. They're all going to be same infection. So that's very clear. Happiness and suffering is my mental experiencing, right? As long as what kind of mind experiencing that. So mental experiencing is majority, like a main, like a causes of the experiencing is which kind of mind we have. If I have too much negative mind there, negative mind always experiencing negative things. That's why you call negative mind. That's why we're suffering. As long as if you have more positive mind, then you always living with the positive mind, your mind always experiencing happiness and joy. So you living with very happy. So living oneself happy and suffering, it's fully depend on your mind. Where are you, your mind? Which level you are? So freedom of anger, freedom of mental affliction. If you're free from all those negative thoughts, emotion, your minds remain always happy and peace. So that's why makes oneself happiness, makes oneself peace and joy. And that's the purpose of human life. Purpose of go to the job, go to work, purpose of doing all these things, difficult job, is that purpose, living with that happiness. So that happiness, which means freedom of mental afflictions. So this issue, first we should really analyze. Sometimes when you feel very stressed, recognize stress that time, really I am suffering. I have a nice job, I have a very good families, nice car, fancy car, everything there. As long as my mind is stressed, depressed, you know you are not happy. Your happiness is gone. Then all those material, what is the purpose of those material? It's actually those material is supposed to be makes you happy, which means your mental experiencing on those material. That's why you have to experience the mental happiness. It makes you happy, which means your mental experiencing happiness. That's very clear. When you go to the restaurant, it's a very good example. When you go to the restaurant, sometimes very fancy, restaurant, very expensive food, go there and they gives you beautiful big plate with one portions of food, one size, the small size of food, and all those decoration, put there, not eatable. and we're giving lots of money for that, and eat their food is nothing there, right? But you're thinking, going there is the purpose is happiness. So when you're looking these things, really, what kind of happiness they're giving us, then when you look through that, you should learn happiness is the mental, to make mind, consciousness, pleasure. So to make a mental happiness, how many different types of mind we have? Actually, we have thousands of different mind, but mainly there are 6 main mind, which are 5 sensory and last mental consciousness, right? Eye sense consciousness, ear sense consciousness, nose, tongue, body sense consciousness, called 5 sensory mind. Then big mental consciousness. These are the main 6 mind. So those 6 mind to make happy. So in order to make those mind happy, first eye sense consciousness, how to make happy. So in order to make eye sense consciousness happy, big plate, nothing food there, only one portion, but beautiful these things there. Eye sense consciousness, when they see pleasure, is not the tongue sense, but for the eye sense consciousness. That's the point. To make eye sense consciousness happiness, only eye sense, what can take eye sense consciousness? Only form, visible things. That's the only. Within a form, what is there? What kind of form eye sense consciousness can see, use, is color and the shape. These 2 things, right? All the form we have to put it into these 2, either color, shape. That's why they try to make beautiful shapes, design, beautiful color. That's the only eye sense consciousness can see that. To make eye sense consciousness happiness, that's why. There's nothing food there, one portion, but so much decoration, people satisfied, people paying money for that. It's actually to make eye sense consciousness happiness. So if you don't get eye sense consciousness happiness, if you paying that maybe that food $20, you lose. You didn't get it. As long as if your eye sense consciousness didn't experiencing that joy, beautiful things there. If you don't experiencing that, it does not make pleasure to your eye sense consciousness, then nothing. You go there, you lose, you fail, right? Then second thing is ear sense consciousness to make happiness. Then they have a beautiful music background. Sometimes they have a live singer or what these musics. Sometimes too much noisy. I'm not sure if that really makes you happy or that makes you bored. It's disturbing you. I'm not sure, but maybe many people. But the purpose of those music is the ear sense consciousness to make happy. That's why, right? That's why we listen. Eye sense consciousness can't see the music. Tongue sense consciousness can't taste. Or nose sense consciousness, no smell. Only this music is for the ear sense consciousness to make happiness. So we should really think these music, people spending money, lots of money, preparation this, what you need is to make this ear sense consciousness happiness, to serve your ear sense consciousness pleasure. That's why those musics are. So think that to relative. Then smell for the nose sense consciousness, good smell. Then of course taste for the tongue sense consciousness, good taste. For the body sense consciousness, it's easy to chew, it's not like a concrete food, right? For that's the way. For the 5 sensory consciousness, very expensive food there. All this food is to make this 5 sensory happiness. So when you receive that 5 sense consciousness happiness, it gives that message to your main mind, mental consciousness. Oh, that's great. I'm really happy, pleasure. You enjoy, your mind is experiencing happiness. That means you pay, you got it. What you got it? Happiness. It's not just the food. So you should be really think it's not about the food. I'm buying happiness. So if you don't get happiness, you didn't got anything. You got food, but you didn't get it, the purpose. So even that object, many people misunderstanding. I go to the restaurant buying food, buying this. Mainly it's why? Buying happiness, right? Like that. So link that. So if you really not smart, not carefully, go to those restaurants out of greedy, out of arrogance, out of selfish, because I'm paying lots of money, I'm rich, these guys should be respect for me. Any different reason do you really pop up with out of those greedies or arrogance or egos, then you already wear these danger glasses in your eye, right? Ego or arrogance or some kind of negative glasses, very dangerous glasses. As long as when you wear those glasses, then wherever you look, you are very sensitive into negative sides. Because you wear those negative glasses, you are sensitive. So even when you go, the people, waiter or whoever, even small their way of their face, maybe it's not smiling or something, you're thinking, wow, this waiter is not good. He's something. You already labeling. Then when they're serving, always you are very sensitive on negative side, what they're doing. Always checking there. You don't have time to look your own food. Here, beautiful food. You didn't see that. Your eye is looking, judging everywhere. You didn't get that. Then you're judging sensitive. Sometimes, of course, everybody has a mistake. Everybody has those mistakes. So by mistake, they did something. Then you're very sensitive. You're taking these things, then screaming, shouting, showing wrathful face, then complaining. All those drama doing there. Now who will going to see first? Your family. Instead of looking this beautiful fancy food, they see this scary face first. So their eye sense consciousness didn't get that beautiful. Eye sense consciousness got that scary message, fearful, right? That get it. Then ear sense consciousness, instead of hearing beautiful music, he hear all those screaming, bad words, all those complaining, horrible words. That's that they got it. Because of this negative image, then give that message to the mental consciousness. The mind full of fear, full of unpleasure feeling. So you pay, you didn't get any joyful. You eat it, you don't have joy. Then come back to your home, then sit there, and you really caution, you are suffering. You're still complaining to us, a restaurant, whatever. Then when you sit, when you real think yourself, what you've done today is, I work very hard to make those money, then I use that money, what I buy suffering to that restaurant. I go there to buy the suffering, then come back there. That's we did it. So whose mistake that? Who create this problem? Is there food or external? Nothing at all. These danger mind, greedies, arrogance, selfish, anger, attachments, those negative thoughts, emotions are very danger. That will always destroy your inner peace and happiness. So think that way. Through that, then when you think really happiness, when will I reach happiness? When will I remain real happiness? How? Only if I achieve freedom of negative thoughts, emotion. If I really get rid of those negative mind, if I really purify my negative mind, then I can remain really peace, really happiness. So that's first, thinking that. So that's we call meaningful life, to seeking the purpose of life. Now, here the Eightfold Path. My time is always going out. The Eightfold Path. So link that Eightfold Path. Its first path is what you call right view. So that's the point, that's the purpose of my life. This is the me, in order to get that happiness. First, right view. Right view has a many different types of right view. One of the gross level of right view is, okay, those suffering comes from, where those suffering comes from. Today we're always thinking out, now we realize those suffering comes from its own causes. Causes which are negative thoughts, emotion, and negative actions, called negative karmas. Negative karmas are the causes of suffering. So negative karma, which means negative action, it's who create individual. That's your action. So you create your own negative causes, negative karma. That's why you will go into experiencing suffering. If these guys create negative causes, I suffering does not make sense. Because suffering and happiness is the impermanence, fully depending on its own cause and condition. They are impermanence. So if you want happiness, you have to know the causes of happiness. You have to develop your causes of happiness. If you don't want suffering, you have to identify the causes of suffering. You have to stop those. As long as if you don't stop causes of suffering, whatever you're doing, you will go into experiencing sufferings. So, right view, which means to understanding bad causes create suffering, good causes makes happiness, law of causality, cause and effect relationship. It's called law of causality, right? Cause of effect relationship. If you really believe that, that's called right view, the gross level of right view. It's like an apple tree. In order to grow the apple tree, I need apple seed. If I plant the orange seed, then prayer, put everything, whatever, never ever comes apple tree. It's going to the orange, right? That's the cause and effect. If causes is the orange, then result orange, whatever we're doing. So we should specific, when you involve with a religion, some kind of faith, sometimes danger, because you don't understanding the real causes. Every day angry, every day fighting, accumulating so much negative karma, found of the Buddha offering and asking him, please make us happiness, peace. Never ever. How? Right? That's the, we call law of causality. If you don't want suffering, you have to stop your negative actions. Don't scream, don't fight it, don't shout it, don't show wrathful face, don't be angry, don't be hate. That's simple. If you want to live happiness, be love, be compassion, be joy, and act positive. And speech with the very respect makes you happy. That's the cause and condition. Being a Buddhist, not believing creator. So what are who created? Their own cause and condition. So that's why if you're not believing creator, that means this is self-responsibility. If you don't want suffering, you have to stop your own causes of suffering. So if you are suffering, asking to the Buddha in prayer, please fix the suffering, that means, looks like you're believing Buddha is the creator of suffering. So his hand, everything in his hand. So I ask him, he can stop. That looks like that philosophy does not make sense. If that's possible, if everything in his hand, then why not he stopping? Right? He has love and compassion to all sentient beings. He wants every being as a peace and happiness. If everything in his hand, why not his doing? That's the simple question. It's not his hand, it's law of causality. It's your causes. So, right view, very important, right? Suffering, I have to stop the causes of suffering. I have to do. I'm suffering, that means I accumulate some causes of that suffering. So there are external conditions, but these are not root causes. Root causes is some kind of negative mind there. So I mentioned earlier, as long as when I experience stress, fear, depression, worry, any scary thing you have, don't only look external things. They are conditioned. Also together, look your emotion. What kind of emotion involved there? Do I really attach too much? Maybe my expectation is too high. Maybe I have something greedy. That's why I fear. That's why I stress. That's why I depress. Some kind of negative thoughts, emotions involved there. So rather understanding that root causes, then try to deal with that. That gives you self-responsibility. And that's the practical way to solving your own problems. So that first you call right view, which understanding the causes of all the suffering, which are your negative thoughts, your negative actions. Negative action, we have physical through your body, negative action through speech. Two things, right? Physical, showing wrathful, fighting, all those things. Speech, harsh word, telling lie, or gossip, slander, or arguing, or screaming, or all those horrible things, speech, and horrible physical behaves. These are the causes. And those horrible those negative action is not just comes, they have causes inside your mind. Maybe you're angry, hate. So there's negative thoughts, emotions. So when your mind is dominated by negative thoughts, emotions, you have no choice. Your physical, behaves going wild. That's why result, trouble, everybody. So right view, which is really understanding the causes of suffering, is my own negative thoughts, emotion, my action, negative actions, negative karma, negative behaves, negative habits are the causes. That's called right view. And happiness, my happiness is my own positive thoughts, which are love, compassion, rejoicing, patience, tolerance, same time physical behave, right behaves. That will give us peace. So that law of causality. Then if you go much deeper right view, with this unique right view, which means everything's are dependent origination, everything's are empty of independent existence. All the phenomena, they not exist by its own. Every phenomena, when we see appearing like that, reality, they are not exist like that. Like flowers, looks like here, it exists by its own, but if you go there, investigate, everything is not findable. It's not pointable. Like hand, when you look there, looks like a solid hand there. But if you go investigate one by one, it's disappear. This finger is not hand, that finger is not. Each part of finger, if you hand, when you go, there's no hand. It's not findable. And each particle, if you go, everything's going to be disappear, like just a wave, something. It's nothing findable. So that doesn't mean they are not exist. That means they are not exist by its own. They are not exist inherently. They are not exist independently. So how does they exist? They exist dependently. So in the object there, we label it. That's why because of tall, that become a short, right? Because of short, this become a tall. Like simple thing, like these three finger. When you look these two finger, you say, oh, this is tall and this is short. But if you ask how this is that tall exists by its own this finger, or how this is tall when you look, because this is short. This is short, therefore this finger become a tall. So tall exists, fully depend on short there. Without short, it's not tall there. But if that tall exists by its own, then always they have to remain as a tall. If that like that, then this finger comes up. They have to be tall still, but they change it. When this finger comes up, this finger immediately change short. So it's nothing exists by its own. It's fully dependent this way or that way. That kind of philosophy is called right view, to understanding each and all phenomena are not exist independently. They are empty of independent existence, empty of inherently existent, empty of exist by its own. That means everything's independently. So east, west, you say this direction is the east, that direction is the west. If you go to the east direction to find the answer, the reason why this is east, never find it. Why this is east? Because that is west. That's the only thing. East exists, but it's not exist by its own, because it exists fully dependent on west direction. So all the day, every phenomenon, it looks like solid there. It's appear in our mind something solid, but the reality, they all interdependently, all link interdependent origination. It's called right view. So then, understanding of that right view. Then second, right intention. So my happiness, if that's the everything is dependent on each other, that's the one thing. Everything is dependent on cause and condition, law of causality. That means now my happiness is depend on others, right? In order to live happiness, happiness itself not exist. Your happiness is dependent on others. So that means I have to take care of others. Our health in this planet, the being who lives, you use this planet, our health is fully dependent on environments. Because of that reason, we have to take care of the environments, right? Sense of care to environment because of that interdependently. Similarly, my happiness is dependent on others, so I have to take care of others. Sense of care to other, right intention. Seeking others benefitly, seeking wish to help them, wish to save them. It makes you happy because your happiness depends on their. Go to the simple family, two couple staying together, happiness, right? Peace. These couples, this guy, his happiness is fully depend on her. Her happiness is also depend on him. Two things there. So if you fight to there, if you hate them, makes you suffering, right? When you fight to your wife and husband, are you really happy? Nobody, right? Fighting and happiness, impossible. Doesn't matter how beautiful food and luxury house you have, as long as your happiness is depending on the being living in these houses, if you hurt them, result makes you suffering. That's very clear. Makes you suffering doesn't mean they have to shout it. As long as something you're doing there, damaging there, because you're receiving happiness from there, you damage them, what are you going to receive? There's nothing happiness, received it. So that's right intention. My happiness is depend on this guy or this wife, source of my happiness. So I have to take care, right? Always, if I want to be happy to it, I have to take care of my families. If you want to live happily in your job, I have to take care of all those people who are working with us. So that's dependently called right intention. To understanding the different philosophy of right view. Surface philosophy of right view, which law of causality. If I act bad, result suffering. If I act good, result happiness. That means if I act bad to these people in my family, result, I will going to be suffer, right? When you morning wake up, maybe last night not good sleeping, in your job, whatever something going wrong, stressful, sleeping with very stress, half sleep, half stress, half wake up, half sleeping. So early morning, your mind is not really peace, not really calm. There's something going wrong there. Then your wife or husband, whoever make beautiful coffee and bring there, then maybe coffee is a little bit bitter or whatever. Then you scream. Why you make this or that, this, that, screaming, right? Because of that scream, that fighting, lunchtime, nobody talk each other. It's very mood each other, looking strange. Eating same in the same table, not talking. Very strange feeling, right? Even don't need to fight, just that behave. Very unpleasure. It's really emotional, psychological, very painful. And that painful who? Morning you scream it. So your happiness is there, relying on there, and you scream it, you damage it, what do you receive it? Afternoon, you have no peace, no happiness. Maybe if they're bad, damage, tomorrow, no coffee. Right? You have to wake up, you have to go, you have to make yourself then. Maybe some bad, whole life, no coffee. That's too much big problem. And that comes from your behavior, right? So, my happiness depends on my action. So I always try to act positive. Always try to act positive. How much is going? Act positive. So think positive. Always think positive. That makes me happy. So that called right intention. If you want to happiness, you act positive, you think positive. If you don't want suffering, you have to stop your negative action, you have to stop negative thoughts. That intention, always thinking that's the philosophy. Instead of that, happiness, money, only money, foolish, right? Happiness, only material. That's we go. All our life went that way. Did you really get happiness? No. Because of rich problem, because of being a star, there's an extra problem. Because of this, you have an extra problem. Very clear. So if you want to be happy, right act, right thoughts. If you don't want trouble in your family, don't use negative action. Don't show negative face. Don't think negatively. That's the intention, right intention. Then, next. Now you got it, right thought, right intention. You got it, easily forget sometime. When emotion comes, you're forgetting almost. So you have to be mindful. It's called right mindfulness. So right mindfulness, always think that again and again. Okay, she shouted in this, she doing this thing. I can't. If I want to be happy, I can't shout it back. I can't think negative. I can't, use harsh word. Not use negative. Mindfulness. Always, again, to think about the happiness. It's come from right action, right thinking. Again, that. So this kind of mindfulness we have to learn because it easily forget. So we need to treat the mindfulness. That's why the third, right mindfulness. Now when you have mindfulness there, now you have to concentrate. Always what you're doing, you should concentrate. I'm doing there, did I do right or wrong? So checking, are your intentions right? Right. Are your actions right or wrong? Always be concentrate. Be mindful and concentrate what you're doing. Otherwise, when you're angry, you're not concentrating. You're drunk by anger. Then doing all those wild things, strange things, all those mistake behaves. You are not concentrating. Then after that, too much trouble, right? So that's why always mindful, then concentrate. Always be. Concentration is very important. You really focus. I'm doing this is because of happiness. Even today, I lose this money, or she did this or that. She break my mug, right? She say, can I shout it? Scream it? If I shout it, is that mug coming back or not? Always concentrating, shouting these things, how much it can help me. Why I'm suffering is because of break this cup. Breaking this cup, why are you suffering? Because of her? Main my pain because of I have attachment. I have too attached to this cup. So that's why they break it. It really hurts me very badly. It's not because of breaking this, because of my attachment. So my pain is created by my attachment. There's no to fight to her, fight to my attachment. That makes my suffering, me. If I don't have any attached to this cup, when there's somebody break it, Nothing, any feeling, right? Just put it in garbage, no problem. Pain there, attachments. So understanding that, concentrate either, mainly, everything I'm doing here, working here, doing this, living with this family is happiness. So I should really concentrate to save the happiness. Don't destroy it. So in order to keep happiness, if I act these things, it will damage my happiness. Always mindful and concentrate what you're doing. So situation when they're wrong, you can act different way. So it's not that much hurts you. It's not that much destroy everything. So many people thinking, if destroy this, that maybe think, oh, completely everything's destroyer. That's your attachment make it. Purpose is happiness. Happiness is the purpose. When you destroy your home, there might be many people think, now finish, everything's gone, my home is gone. Is that the home? Is your purpose? Purpose of your life is not the home, it's the happiness, right? As long as home gone, whatever is gone, as long as if I remain happiness, that's my point. Home, why I need? Because of happiness. If I don't need happiness, why I need this home, right? So always think that way. It keeps you really calm. Because if you're thinking only that, then when you lose these things, you really feel too much angry, too much sadness. You feel like hopeless. Everything you feel like gone, now finished, hopeless, very weak. So instead of that, when you think this is the purpose, happiness, peace, these are just tools. It's a tool to make that. So losing one tool doesn't mean my purpose is gone. My purpose never it. Any material things going finish. Any my family disappear. Whatever things disappear doesn't mean I'm going to lose my purpose. Purpose is happiness, right? So always thinking that way. Then concentrate, you behave, everything. Then when you concentrate, then second thing is you concentrate, then next time you finish. Yang concentrates, you finish. In and out, in and out, in and out. So you need diligent, continuation concentration. It's called right effort. Always be right effort. Always diligently, be continuous, think again and again to continuously right effort. So then when you right effort, then next step is called right speech. So always now, out of that you are really concentrating, you are really looking about your own happiness and family peace. So in order to do these things, always try to use my speech as a very positive, right speech, meaningful word, very positive, very polite. Whoever hear those sound, those words, makes some kind of pleasure, makes some kind of joy. So that right speech, which means meaningful, is going to the point, right, and makes pleasure oneself and others, and always respect with the right, not mistaken speech. It's called right speech. So when you have that effort, then try to use. Some people have bad habit, always using those harsh words. Sometimes even small problems, they're just all those horrible words you're using. Who's hearing these words? Your children's, right? Specifically, you have a teenager, like a very small children, babies, their brains are growing. Every second they're learning, they're absorption, they're absorbing, they're learning. They have to label, right? I mentioned earlier, there's nothing any exists by its own. Everything exists, you have to label. That baby, every time when they hear all those horrible words, doesn't mean parents have to tell them. As long as when they say, those people, when they're hearing, they're learning all those bad words. So the thought when they comes, because of you label bad things, of course, negative thoughts comes up more. That's why you're teaching to your children very bad, what you call education, bad education. You're educating their brain as very bad things, bad word, bad action, bad example. You're showing this baby don't know how to, not speaking, not talking, seeing, hearing, destroying, all these things. Future, they become very familiar. So when the teenager, all those words already learned them. Showing wrathful, screaming, they know all this expert because they learn from their parents. Parents didn't teach in front of them because they're doing each other. That's why they're learning, right? The animals, you can see that when the cheetahs or this animal, when they teach to their baby how to catch the buck and those other animals, they're not talking. They're not talking to them. They go there catching, showing. Baby is looking how to catch. Bringing in front of there, doing something, then he's doing, playing. That's the way baby learning. It doesn't mean I'm saying to them. That's the way they learn. Similarly, human beings, so many we learning because of that. So that's why right speech, always to right speech, using oneself happiness, others. It's very respect at speech. Other person wants to hear that. That's when they hear, they listen, they concentrate. When you're screaming and all these things, their mind fully shut down, don't want to listen. So how many times you say, is they are not going there? Then you feel like they're not hearing or something. Their volumes getting bigger, higher volumes. Screaming. Even maybe your neighbor is hearing what you're doing, but you're screaming. You think he's not hearing. It's not listening, because those words, it's coming with very scary things. Nobody wants scare. Nobody wants unpleasant things. Who will going to listen? Even what you're saying is right. You're saying is right doesn't mean they will going to listen, because that right information coming with the poison things. Very fancy, delicious food, if you put the poison, not eatable, right? Doesn't mean this is the very expensive, doesn't mean very good taste, doesn't mean not eatable, because there's a poison. Similarly, what you're saying is right, what you're doing, but the speech, the word comes with very harsh, very bad together. The message coming with a very bad word is poison word. Nobody going to listen to that. So always, right speech is very good. To listen other people, right speech. Very meaningful, very polite, very honorific words. Try to use that right speech. Then right speech, right action. Then always to act. Very positive. Action with a very positive. So try to learn those. So talking positive, action positive, thinking positive, right intention, you're fully concentrating, you fully know your purpose, everything together, result, right livelihood, very happy life, happy, peaceful family. Sometimes the family is very simple. They have a simple house, but within the family, always be very joy, very happy, very sense of humor, very joy. And that happiness, living with a very rich, fancy home, with the fancy food, family always be strict or scary each other, not talking each other. There's no that pleasure. Pleasure is nothing there. Everything is just material. And the person is living with there, always stress, always depression, always worry. Then go to the sleep, very fancy bed, very fancy those whatever things there. Fancy bedroom, can't sleep because of those, emotional, everything suffering. What's the purpose of fancy bedroom? Actually good sleep. Can't sleep there. People sleeping in the street with a very peaceful, busy traffic, noisy, never disturbed, very peaceful. Sleeping with a fancy, great bed, never sleep. Wake up, middle of the night, have to take those pills, try to sleep, pills. Eye cup, and then ear put so many other, I don't know what they're doing. But can't sleep still, right? So that suffering of not sleeping, right? Suffering of not sleeping very well. And they have every conditions there, but there's something, they didn't get that happiness. They don't have those facility. They got the purpose of that is pleasure, sleeping with very pleasure sleeping. They have, we don't have. Why? Is they're not material. That's right action, right speech, right thoughts, right intention. Lack of this inner value. So lack of inner value result always trouble, always suffering. You're living with a very fancy luxury life, never achieve peace, happiness, no experiencing happiness. So that means not meaningful life. It's not getting them. What the purpose? Meaningful life, which means happiness. That's why I've told you. That's the point. That's we want it. That's why you go to the school or office or working. About that. If the person they don't have nothing, then they didn't get anything. So they are really poor. Internal, they are really poor. They are really sufferings. People with external material, not that much, but they are really rich. Internal, full of joy, full of pleasure, all the family joyfulness. That kind of joy, happiness, you can't buy by money. We can't buy these things. It's not easy to get by money or any external power. Never ever. It's only the individual way of your thinking, way of your acting, way of your mind, way of your life spending. That's the only you receive that. So to live like that level of meaningful life, every human beings, we all have same potential. It's not about rich or poor. It's not about high position, low position. It's not about male, female, educate, uneducated. It's not about that. Everybody, we all have same potential. As long as when you live with this kind of lifestyle, doesn't matter what kind of job you have, what simple food you're eating, you got it. You have that. As long as if you don't have these things, whatever beautiful things you have, you didn't get it. So that's important to know. So that's the why it's called seeking meaningful life through the Eightfold Path. So that's Eightfold Path, how I apply in my life to make meaningful, which means really happiness, oneself, families, community, society, every time, wherever you go, wherever you stay, wherever you communicate with others, very joy, very open-minded, transparenting, clear, clean, outside, inside, everything clean. There's no fear, there's no something to hide it. Very pure. Otherwise, everything like a drama, inside full of rotten, full of pain, outside, showing as a nice, everything okay, right. That's what? Nothing there, right? Didn't get the purpose. They're lying themselves, and what? Point is, the inner beings always suffering. So that's why, those Eightfold Path, we should really use our daily life to use those lives, then slowly change it. First, understanding those human intent, purpose of human life, of human identity, basic ground, who am I, what's the purpose. Then second, how can you make right view, then right intention, then right, mindfulness, concentration, then effort, then right speech, right action, wherever you go, wherever you stay, with family and office, wherever, right action, right speech, then right livelihood. And that's the Eightfold Path. Okay, that's today. Thank you.